Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of The Hump. I'm Mark Mack, your host, and I got my man, Eric Ianello. What's today? Today is a hump day. So we're back again with another episode, and I got the funniest effing guy that I could think of to join the show tonight. This guy I've been watching and listening to for I don't know how long, and everything that I would love to say and make a joke of, he's been able to do it about sales. And we're going to break it all down tonight. So welcome, Eric. How's it going, brother?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm good as at my hairline. So I digress. But needless to say, man, it's great to be here, brother. You and I are. I've been waiting to do this, man. So
Bald brothers for life. I got my hat on, but me,
we earned this. That's what I like to say. We earned this.
That's true. I'm not sure if it was sales or my kid that really made it go a lot faster. I think when I when I had my son at 9 years ago, then it really started to dwindle.
I felt like there was like a hard cliff, right? Like I had a joke that's like you could see my driver's license before I got married and after I got married, and then once I had my kid, and it's just like this decline. You're like, yeah. And of course, everyone's like, "You got a little shadow." I'm like, "I quit before I get fired, man. I saw it. I saw it coming from a mile away. Like, let's just get ahead of the curve."
Yeah, I had I tried to keep it going. Like, it started to thin and then what really the biggest problem was, kind of like my dad, when my dad's gone like 30 something years now, but we used to make fun of him because he had like this, the comb over, the flip. So he had this one big piece of hair that came over. And it was so funny because like when he was driving, he would hold the wheel and he'd lean against the door. And like if it was windy and he had the window cracked, the hair would stick out the window, be flapping out the window. And it was so funny. But like I had that, and like I just like it was a pain in the ass because like I always had to take a shower in order to get it right, like it was just always getting messed up. And I realized that there was a point that came where it looked like I was trying too hard. Maybe.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm getting rid of it.
Just accept
and my brothers, I think it was a time when I remember my brother, like he was standing, we have our lake house, and he was standing up and he was looking down and he was seeing like the bald spot I had, but I still had the other hair going. And he made a comment and he said it looked like a camel toe or something like that. And I was like, that's it. I'm fucking shaving it. It was right then and there. I just I took out the blade and I shaved it off because I was like, I'm not getting bald. I can't get made fun of. I guess if he's making fun of me, then maybe there's other people out there that think the same. And not that I care about what my head looked like, but I kind of did, I guess. And I said, but I did it for ease, right? It was just better to do it for like just the ease of like getting up in the morning. I don't buy any shampoo anymore. I don't got a comb. I don't need any combs or brushes. So
yeah, awesome. I get it.
Well, Eric, listen, man. I really welcome to the Hump. Love to have you on the show. Certainly wanted to do this for a long time, so great to have you in. Generally, I give people just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, to just tell us who you are, where you're from, what you got going on in the life and in the world of business, and those kinds of things. And you got it. Go for it.
Yeah, man. Shoot, there's really nothing special to me. I always like to joke that I'm a redneck living in a blue-collar state, working a white-collar job, man. I'm out here in Boise, and it's one of the eclectic few that if you hear software sales, they think that you're still selling floppy disks. Like, that's where I live. And it's great. I live in the best of both worlds. I obviously work remote, and I work for a great company called ComStore, super popular on LinkedIn, which makes my job 10 times easier, being that I can say whatever the hell I want and they don't punish me for it because it's good brand, which I abuse extensively. But yeah, I'm head of sales over here. I've been out here. Well, I was actually with them fractionally for a while, and good friends with Mac, the CEO here. And we got to a place where it was just like, listen, let's do the damn thing, right? So love the message that they're pushing. I, for one, cannot speak enough on the fact that your network is your net worth, and that I went through back-to-back hardships, and to the point that I can only equip my ability to stand on my own 2 feet today to my network in the way that it came to pervade me. So like that, I'm passionate about it. I speak about it, man. I live it. I love it. And we're here because of it, right? That's how you and I connected. So big ethos aspect of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I would like to dig into that. I mean, I think, one of the topics I chose to talk about was future of outbound? And is it really near bound? Is it network bound, if you will? Near bound, I guess, is the term some people are using for accessing and leveraging your network. I don't know if you guys use it at ComSor in that fashion, but essentially, yeah, I mean, it is your network, right? And is that what they're all about? I mean, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's it. So I'll expand on the ethos and keep it real brief because I don't want to do like a massive plug because this is about camels and hump
Oh,
days, baby.
it's all about you
But
and whatever you want, man. It's good.
yeah, I think it's to the epitome of, right, like the oldest saying in the book is people buy from people they know and they trust. And in the outbound world, that's one of the hardest things to establish, especially in such a quick clip at a short stint and such a proof value, that a lot of the reliancy on ComStor, actually, I should say on the network, is streamlining that ability to reference and leverage the relationship, be it yourself to your own or somebody in the middle introducing us to, and leveraging that ability just to streamline that process. And that's what ComStor does, right? And that's the cool notion of operationalizing a go-to-network motion that you could generate and progress pipeline. So near bound, be it outbound, near bound, sales bound, I don't give a shit what you call it. The action is still the same. You know what I mean? Like that's the beauty of it.
And do you think like what about people who are coming up in the industry, right? They don't have a network. So, if the world becomes network driven and they don't have one, it's like, what are some of your best practices in developing that network or a network?
Connect, man. So there was a point, right? And it wasn't too long ago that I was new to LinkedIn. Like I'm still tying my shoes. But there was this kind of, I don't want to freaking call it a light bulb moment. I hate those cliches. But it was this kind of point that I was like, shit, I know a lot less than what I do know. I'm also connected to a lot less than who I am connected with. So I found some individuals that I'm like, hey, I would love to work off of your network. Do you mind if I kind of search through, kind of ping through? Hey, can you introduce me to? And I just kind of saw it as a map, right? And I was like, if I want, like my mentor is Adam J. He's a prolific individual, love him to death. And I knew I wanted to get a hold of him because I liked his ideology. I liked the way he talked. I liked his methodology. I loved the way, how can I get a hold of him? Hey, I saw that Mark was connected to him. So hey, Mark, you might give me a quick intro? And all of a sudden now I'm leveraging their network.
Right.
And it's just one step a degree. What is that game, right? What is it? 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
What's the channel that I can leverage in order to get to where I need to be? That's the idea of it. Be it yours, be it somebody else's, be it fucking Susan's from down the road, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. Exhausted.
Yeah. Do you think like, so I've had this conversation before a little bit about, looking at your network, and where I've had people actually come to me and say, hey, can you introduce me to this person and that person? And generally what I go and I look at is I'll say, okay, who are they asking about? And I have like 3 categories of connections. I have A, B, and C, right? My A connections are somebody that, yeah, no problem. I'll send them a message right now. I'll text them. I'll email them. I'll call them for that matter, right? I'm that close. But then there's the B ones where like, maybe for me, like I'd say Adam, right? Like I haven't had a conversation with Adam, but I'd say Adam knows who I am, probably just from content creation. I know him. I'm following him. I comment on his posts and stuff, and he, he'll say like back or whatever. So like he might be somebody who, if he knows I'm legit, he may, if I said, oh, I'll just shoot your name over to him or shoot your number over to him, he may interact. I call him a B, like he might be a B in my category, right? And then there's C's in my category. Those are people I really have no idea who they are. They just join. I'm like, I appreciate you asking me, but you're just as good reaching out to them on your own than me doing it. In fact, me might even be worse, for that matter, because I don't know what they think of me, right? So like, I don't know, how do you kind of do that? Because 12,000 content, like I always look at this, I think I have 12,000 followers, you have 12,000 followers. Maybe I could, when I even think about who I would invite here, like I've got 1,000 invites, probably only maybe 300 to 400 of them do I know personally, if that, or I know enough about them that I could say, oh yeah, you should do that. But the other 11,000, so like, how do you see that? Do you see that in the same way?
I tier them off just like I do with my ICP, just like I do with my accounts. It is all categorically organized, or the lack thereof, I guess, is the kind of epitome of it. But yeah, it's exactly that. I may even take it one step further in the fact of, can I call them? Are they connected on my phone, or are they connected on LinkedIn? If they're connected on LinkedIn, the likelihood of me actually knowing them is one in, I don't even know how many freaking connections I have. But again, I can count on my one hand or two hands how many people that I know I'm connected with on LinkedIn, right? You being one. If I reached out to you, it's a totally different motion as if I reached out to, shit, I mean, insert as you see fit.
Alex Boyd. I don't know. I'm looking at all your followers. It's got your.
I know Alex. That's actually really funny. But like Adam, I could text him right now and be like, hey, he knows my kids' names, for crying out loud. So there's, I think, different levels, exactly same mentality. It just categorized a little bit differently, right? Cell phone connections to internet connections to, Gmail connections.
Sure. I'd like to actually touch on what you just said about your phone. So the phone, for me, right, it obviously text or actual calls, but let's talk WhatsApp, right? Maybe the new networking channel almost, even though it has some obviously security things, but I'm finding those groups actually, first of all, from a pure content perspective, even though it's sometimes difficult to keep up because it's going all night, night and day, is a new and refreshing almost channel to create connections on. And I've been using it more myself as much as I can. I think some people overseas actually use it almost as an opportunity to network, and I see it because I'm getting like requests on it. Like people just hit me up direct because they have my phone number, so they just use WhatsApp, and then I get these messages that says, "Hey, what's going on?" Come on.
It's a wild west when it comes to that. So as I come to understand it, by no means am I a legal expert, but I try to at least keep up with some sort of regulation so I don't violate them to the best of my ability. But as I understand it, a lot of cold text, or excuse me, in a lot of states, cold texting is illegal. For, I don't know, Google it. I don't fucking know. But
whatever.
But in WhatsApp, it's like a nose old barred, man. Like it's the wild freaking west. And so I'm a part of one, I call it thought group, in the sense that we exchange, and like it's an international base. It's super cool. It's a wealth of knowledge that I'm like, I feel grateful to be a part of. But holy mother of all things, it's crazy the amount of cold text that I'm just like, I'm lonely and looking to mingle. I'm like, Susan, like, come on, but it's still the epitome of like, it's just a wild west of people just like hitting it and just like,
well, there's no rules, right? And it's like, I don't think there's been enough let's say controversy or feedback about it on any other channel to really dictate how it should be used. I think that's the love. I think that's the beauty of it, right? Like it's almost everything's acceptable, and if you don't want to get cold text, then you just ignore it, right? Like I'm not one to report. Like I don't like say, delete and report, because why? What's the point of that? It's like, where's that really going to go anyway? Is that going to actually get them in trouble? Probably not.
It's meta, for crying out loud, right? Like meta's going to be like, all right, that's cute, dude. Like, calm down. Like, they're not going to care about us reporting. But I mean, I think it's entertaining.
Whoa, I lost him. That's wild. He must have hit his. I've done that a few times myself. Here he comes. I was just saying, did you knock everything out? Did you hit the plug?
I got a bunch of new tech, like I told you, man. I shouldn't even be. I moved the mouse. I apologize. I'm sitting on my hands now.
All right. Yeah. Hey, I wanted to touch on one thing. I noticed you got a Broncos jersey on, so that's awesome. I like Denver Broncos. I was a big Elway fan back in the day.
This is actually Boise State Broncos.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Yeah.
But I have noticed you wearing a Yankee hat.
So I was born in Rochester.
Okay.
So when my grandparents immigrated here from Sicily, my grandfather was originally, well, he's, rest his soul, he's got a Buffalo Bill emblem on his gravestone, but my grandmother has a New York Yankees emblem. So
really, I probably
represent New York in some sort of capacity, but I got my Boise State boys with me.
I could definitely see myself. I'm going to tell that to my wife. God forbid I go first, babe. Make sure there's a new NY etched on my headstone. Awesome. I never thought about that.
That's what made them American. So it was like one of those rites of culture passage, and I respect the heck out of it. They immigrated. They worked their ass off for it, and that was the right for it. So, yeah, I don't root for the Bills by any means, but I mean, love them as a proxy. But yeah, my Bronco
Yeah.
boys are always with me.
The Bills, I was, look, I do like Mahomes, and Kansas City is an amazing team. He's an amazing guy. In fact, I, I just thought he was just like any other quarterback until I watched that quarterback series, like that
Yeah,
Netflix quarterback series where they like went into his
yeah,
life and
sure,
his
sure.
training, and I saw how he like trains is amazing. Like they
Yeah,
bend his body in ways that your body's not supposed to be bent and pulled and pushed, so that when he's in an insane situation being tackled by 250-pound linebackers, you know, that he's not going to sprain his ankle or he's going
yeah,
to break a toe or something like that. And I remember after I watched that, the one game that he looked like he should have been like mauled, like he should have broken his leg or something, the way he got tackled, and he somehow flipped out of it because he's so that flexible. He's expecting to get bent in directions he's not, that he can't control, and he's able to slither out of it. And I think his training and his coaching and like how he primes himself is definitely top notch. I mean, it's Tom Brady top notch. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
for anybody to compare those two guys, I mean, one's 28 and the other one's 48, or whatever,
yeah.
43 or something. So you can't really make the comparison. But what an amazing game that was. I thought the Bills were going to come back and win, actually.
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, I've got my proxies. Of course, I like the Bills. I certainly just don't
Yeah,
represent them. But no, I mean, I'm a Josh Allen fan through and through. I think that guy's a
he was
freaking
good.
workhorse. But no, Patrick Mahomes is a freak of nature, man. He is.
He is.
He is
But
a
but
freak of
but
nature.
what's his name? I mean, Josh, he like threw three 50-yarders
Yeah,
that were caught, that I was like, this guy's gonna win. I swear
yeah,
he's gonna win
yeah.
just on that. I mean, it was a great game. And I mean, look, Philly versus, I mean, it's just a repeat. It's like, all right, great.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I would have been excited, but you know what? Hey, c'est la vie. Between
yeah,
Washington making the
absolutely.
strong run and the Bills making the strong run, it was a fun season. It was an interesting season.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you got WhatsApp. People got WhatsApp. So that, it's kind of the new channel, networking, right? So you got LinkedIn, you got communities, you got, just the idea of leveraging your network in a structured way is kind of what I'm drawing from you. Like you categorize it, you understand it. And I don't think people spend enough time really just analyzing it. They want to go back to those old school. Let me just build a list of prospects and do my old thing, and maybe they don't feel like they could leverage their network in the proper way. What do you think? Like with respect to that, do you find, like, let's say, Sales Nav being probably one of the strongest tools to develop that kind of strategy?
It definitely can be, right? Like, I even look at the old classic Rolodex, like back in the day, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's look at what we built our sales motion from. The Rolodex. That was a lot of people's net worth. When they come in for an interview, you'd be like, check out my Rolodex, right? Like that was a pretty strong flex based on the number of connections and who you were connected with.
Yeah.
The same can be applied here, right? And that's the idea of it's not necessarily much the quality, or excuse me, the quantity, but the quality of it. So those individuals who have been in the space, right, or even just are like knee deep in understanding their ICP or understanding, like they call it business acumen, but really developing that within the network aspect of things, they're be far more valuable in the long run than somebody that's the latter of. I see the conversation going down. It's like my network is base full of customers. I'm like, all right, that's a means to an end, which I could appreciate. But the network is so much greater than just prospect and the pipeline generated,
Mhm.
right? And we can look at this from either like a networking social point of things, a pipeline generation sort of things. It could be so much broader than just the idea of that kind of transactional relationship. So
Right.
again, depending on where you want to go, LinkedIn Sales Nav is a fantastic tool in that pioneers a huge community. Um, and then there's others, right? Like you were mentioning WhatsApp, another great one. Slack, I know that's coming out with a networking capability within their integration in their platform. So it's definitely an adapted idea in operationalizing what is so nuanced already, but with that
Some
idea.
people some people say they're using Slack to do that. I don't understand. How do you can't cold get into groups in Slack. You have to be invited into like a community or something
Yeah,
like
so
that.
take away the idea of like cold all around. Like we're and in my kind of circumstance, like I'm looking at warm intros, right?
Yeah.
So taking that away, like we may not have had the previous established relationship, but in some sort of proxy of a commonality, be it the community that we're in, be it the
Yeah.
conversation, an individual that we may be connected with, whatever that is, that changes the narration a little bit. Now, we'll be splitting apples and oranges to the point of like, is it cold outbound? Is it warm? Like, who cares? What I'm addressing it as is there is a means or a median that is now a commonality between us, not a provisional point of transaction, i.e., cold
Right.
outbound to then transaction to a sale, but necessarily a conversation based on X, Y, or Z. So again, apples and oranges to the temperature that you're associating it with, but the idea of leveraging relationship based on that foundation is going to be established. So Slack, for example, right? It's going to be a transaction point or a relationship exchange based on the community on that foundation. Whether that's cold or hot, warm, lukewarm, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
So I noticed also you obviously had your fitness business for many years.
Yeah.
Eric Ianello Fitness, Hardcore Fitness Boot Camp. Where I'd love to. You were at Anytime too. That's a big franchise. Never thought about opening your own Anytime franchise?
I funny enough, yeah. So that was my world, man. I thought I was going to be in fitness for my life. I have kinesiology background. That was my whole thing. Physical therapist, chiropractics, personal training. That was my ethos for gosh, up until I had kids, right? So the funny part was I was about 2 months
Well,
away
you
from
don't look
signing.
like you have the dad body though. You still look
Oh,
like you're in pretty good
that's why I
shape.
keep it from the chest up, my friend.
All
I'm
right.
like a good baggy sweater. So I was 2 months away from signing for my own location
Oh yeah.
in the town that I lived in, and then COVID hit. So then I moved my idea to actually training like in the park and stuff where we could actually have that. Granted, at that time I was in California, which was operating at a different rule, but
It does.
yeah. And then I eventually found Hardcore Fitness, who was kind of giving the middle finger to all those proxies, which I jumped in and I was like, cool, I can absolutely make a living. And it was right across the street from ServiceNow. So I was training all those guys from that were working at ServiceNow. And they're
Mhm.
like, man, you can talk, you can sling, you can deal. How about you cold call? I was like, fuck, cold call. I'm not going to spam. They're like, we made $83,000 working 4 days a week. I'm like, give me a freaking phone. I was like that, and that's it. And that was it. So and then I turned myself to B2B, and then I found working from home where I could be with my son. And at the time he was just born, and it just became a kumbaya symbiotic operation. And I don't want to say it came easy, but it came natural to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's really interesting about what you just said was you were in this space of personal, really B2C, personal
Yeah.
one-on-one type of work, where to you it was not really sales. Sales was it just happened because you would put yourself out there and people want to get fit, and so they come to you, and it was like almost frictionless in that sense. So it sounds like you actually had that same perception of salespeople or the sales world that a lot of people have. And it's just a kind of you know a way of thinking that many people out there, even some of the prospects you call on a regular basis, probably feel about salespeople. Like I always say that like some of the best salespeople are ones who are not salespeople. Like they're the engineer, the tech guy, this
Oh,
guy,
yeah.
because they don't realize that by being so intimate with the product or service that they actually could sell it a lot better than the salesperson that's probably selling it, because they're not going to go into those calls with any tricks or tips or this or that like most salespeople have been trained on. They're going to go in and just ask the right questions
Yeah.
about the product, about their needs, and then be able to talk intelligently about the product or service because they were using it, or they were the ones actually implementing it, or whatever it is. And so I think it's funny because I feel like what I'm trying to do in this world is change that. It's never going to change everybody's attitude about it,
Yeah.
but really change the perception that people have of salespeople. Like so that we can get more people to come into the space, that have that kind of talent that they don't realize that they have. right? Because sales isn't about being a talker. Like my father wrote in my yearbook in 5th grade, one of those things where like you had the folding pages and whatever, and he wrote, your big mouth is going to be your forte when you become mayor of New York City. Well, suffice it to say, I'm not mayor of New York City, but I realized while that was a mantra for me to be in sales to a certain degree, it's actually counterproductive, right? Because I've spent my entire career, the last 30 years, trying to listen more than talk. And I'll admit that it's a lifelong lesson. Like I even have I've been trying something new. It's just like I often, when I'm talking to somebody, or I'm like, say I'm on a cold call, first touch call, whatever, I'm talking to somebody and somebody's talking to me and I'm getting them to talk. I have a tendency to go, yeah, I got you. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, nice. And my boss constantly says, shut the fuck up. He
Yeah.
thinks I'm trying to say something. I'm trying to cut him off. And I'm not really trying to cut the person off, although I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm really just agreeing with them. Isn't that a natural thing to do? And while it may seem natural in regular speech when you're face to face with somebody or your friends or your family, it might actually be better just to be quiet,
Yeah.
and let them talk. And so I think it's a lifelong thing, to learn how to do that. I think you're just constantly learning how to be a listener, but it's the dilemma that the salesperson has, right? They prolong that reputation of being a talker, but you don't need to be a talker. You don't need to be extroverted to be in sales, at least not today, right? With all the tools that we have and stuff like that. So.
I mean, and you bring up a good point. Like the one thing that I can give, like, I don't know, I hate the word success, but like the way that I've gotten to where I am today is based on the mentality, right? Like I grew up on ranches my whole life, so I am not naive to hard work. Throughout my B2C career, as we call it, right, the physical fitness aspect of things, it was based on commission only. Like I only got paid when I served. And so with that idea, it's like very much like what you put in is what you get out. And so I think a lot of these kids or the people that are coming in these days that haven't been able to kind of, callous their hands, so to speak, are going to be naive to that idea of like, hey, I'm here to like, I hate the word when you come in, like, I'm here to help people, as I constantly make fun of people in their headline, like, I help engineers. It's like, no, you don't. Like, calm down. You're selling to them. But having the mentality of like, hey, I'm here to genuinely have a conversation with somebody and hope that we can come to the same synergistic conclusion at the very end of the conversation. Right. Be that disqualified or qualified.
Sure.
But it's also the grit and the tenacity. So like, again, like the best people I've ever hired are service workers, are hospitality employees, are educational tenants, as they call them, teachers or whatever. And they're just sitting there at a sense of curiosity, because your curiosity is going to lead to the success, what we hope to actually conclude, which is a mutual partnership and some sort of collaboration. How do I do that? Listen, ask good questions, be tentative, follow up, grit, curiosity, all of those kind of things.
Sure.
But yeah, it comes down to mentality, man. And I will say, if your strength is confirming through the verbiage of, yep, I hear you, like confirmation, because if you pick up the tone that they need to have that kind of sense of confirmation, fucking double down. Yeah. But if you also see them kind of getting a little irked, read the room, pivot, reapply.
Man. That should be on everybody's headline. Read the room.
I think that's the strength of it, right? Like I've had a number of funny thing is, this is probably going to be a tangent, man. Most of my personal training sessions, I felt like Dr. Phil, no pun intended on the bald head, but it felt like there's almost like a therapeutic session, much like if you go to the bar and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I'm going to have a good time. And all of a sudden, I can't believe she broke my heart. And you're like, where?
Yeah.
But you have to be able to read the room and pivot accordingly. Same thing with prospects. You may come in and discover something. They may actually discover something different. And then all of a sudden you're in a completely different tangible conversation like we are right now.
I think everybody has a story about like their male female interaction where they got a girl, they became their wife or husband, and it was when they weren't trying.
Yeah.
Right. It was when they were almost ignoring them and to a certain degree. And I don't mean ignoring like on purpose, because
I was
that's
gonna say my
trick.
wife still ignores me. She's not trying to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, like, it's almost like you're not trying. It's like when you got
Right,
nothing
right,
to
right, right.
lose and you don't try is when you actually are attractive, I guess. You know, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
my wife, I met her downtown Manhattan at the South Street Seaport on our way back on the Staten Island ferry. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I had gone out. I had joined a company early in the year, and this was in August, but earlier in the year, I had joined a company, and it was an IT consulting company when IT, like when SaaS didn't even exist, when computers barely existed. I mean, I ran a $6 million um, sales team on index cards, was our CRM, literally index card.
Yeah, hell yeah. Sticky
And
notes and see it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was crazy. And I remember I had put my head down for about 9 months to really get this business off the ground for myself. And I mean, I wasn't running the business. I was like the first hire, second hire, and it was going gangbusters. I mean, like every 3 months I got promoted, and I got. It was kind of like it is today. At 3 months you go to AE, 3 months you go to VP. It's like that. And 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and so, but it was funny because I was down at the ferry and she was there. She had gone to a concert that night and the band didn't show, so she left and she was on her way home. And I used to smoke cigarettes back then, and she was standing in this little like like gazebo thingy where they little shop or whatever, get candy and cigarettes. And she was rummaging through her book bag on the floor, and it was like a small space, and I kind of had to lean over. I was like, "Yeah, pack of Camel Lights, like this." And I was like, "You all right down there?" And she's like, "Uh huh, yeah, yeah," like ignoring like the guy who's talking to her, who's a stranger, like
Schmuck coming by the yep, yep.
she was probably scared. And then like I left, I walked down, and I was just waiting for the boat, and she came strolling over, and she's like, "Did you just talk to me like that?" And I was like, "I don't know, yeah." What can I do for you? It was like just like that. Like
Yeah.
I was so tired already because me and my buddy, it was the first. Oh, I neglected to say I had gotten the job in 9 months. I was grinding, and then my buddy saw me in the mall, and he's like, "Dude, I want you to go get a haircut, go buy an outfit, and we're going out tonight." That's what he said. I hadn't been out mingling in like 10 months, and I wound up meeting her that night, right? But we
Yeah.
went out, we had a great time, we got numbers from girls and all kinds of stuff, and then it was like the end of the night, I was exhausted, and I really wasn't out to like at that point like looking to pick up, and so I was basically ignoring her, and then she was just kept coming on to me, and like yeah, I couldn't help it. So it's true. It's like when you don't try, it actually happens. And so I think that's a good lesson for even people who are making first touches, is that like it's not about getting married. It's not about like asking for a time 30 seconds into the call. Why don't you just be calm and introduce yourself, and then see about whether or not they actually have any problem that you could potentially solve. But you said something about me hiring people, and I thought what was interesting a couple of weeks back or a couple of months back, you had posted something about uh, you know you were interviewing, and then all of a sudden you got hired, and then all of a sudden now you're on the other side of the table. So walk me through what that was like in your head to go from interviewing, then all of a sudden the interviewer, and maybe the lessons that you pulled from that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's an interesting circumstance, or I think it's interesting. It's probably more common than I'm privy to, but like I went to back to back to back riffs, and like what I insert as you see fit, riff, layoff, reduction, whatever you want to call it. But like I had 3 at bats and strikeouts in a row, and it was rough to the point that I was just kind of like not
Well,
necessarily self
Falcon
doubt. Was
Falcon folded, didn't they? Like, didn't they
yeah,
just
yeah,
blow?
they
Yeah, so you
folded, but
weren't
it was
riffed out of there. That
well,
company
these are the
was
ones I don't list on my LinkedIn,
uh,
for obvious reasons.
okay. All right.
But needless to say, that it was just a back-to-back circumstance, back to back to back.
Yeah.
Anyways, I got to the point that I thought I was pretty good at, this interviewing thing, that I got a number of offers. But
Yeah.
what I was noticing was, in the sense of showing up and showing off, right? Like the same thing with the B2C. Like you are your business card, be it that you're the product that you're selling to the other individual. Most people will argue it's a two-way street, which I digress. Stay la vie. I only care about my side of the street right now. And that's because I got a freaking family to feed. So with that idea, I always went, in my perspective, above and beyond, right? I would like to show them how I operate by doing the job I'm interviewing for. So prospect, multi-thread, understand their prop value, understand the business better than they do. So that way, when I have these propositions, these theories, these hypothesis, I'm coming in from a collaboration standpoint, not necessarily a pitching standpoint, hoping that it's a solution to solve, but more of like a collaboration, a partnership. So again, it's kind of changing that narrative and perspective a bit. Now, what I noticed as I got my role, right, it was a little bit more natural with just my and Mac's relationship, the CEO. But I was noticing is that when I went out and basically opened up the floodgates going, hey, I'm hiring, I was so let down by how many people chose not to do it. And I gave the clear, I don't like to say instructions because I'm certainly not like, hey, do you show up and show off. If you want to show up on my front doorstep and deliver me coffee, cool. If that's the way that you get attention, rock some socks. But what I saw was nobody took the outstanding motion to like really show up and show off. I'll keep on using that cliche term. And I was just sitting there, I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, man, I empathize with people. I like to say that I've helped people get, roles through my network, making introductions. And what I saw was just a constant reverberation on like what we're seeing in current outbound, which is just, if you can't beat them and join them, plug in these masses and just spray and pray. And then they would turn around with their hightail and complain on LinkedIn, like as if they didn't get the opportunity. So I didn't see the connection between it. So yeah, it was an interesting perspective shift where when you're interviewing, you're kind of typically staying in your lane. Like you don't really see what else is out there. You don't know who the other candidates are. So you're kind of just sitting here going, hey man, I'm operating by my rules and I hope this is enough. If not, like shit, what else can I do? And then when you're doing the other side, you get all of these different perspectives, all these different approaches. And you're like, I got 471 applications. 19 of those use warm intros. That's what my company does. Like I was just amazed by that. And I said, don't just drop a DM. All of them did. And I was just like, I'm shocked. Yeah. So it was an interesting perspective, not to rant and ramble, but
man. No, that's what I wanted you to do.
It hurts because I empathize with those. I hate going on LinkedIn and I'm seeing like all these like, hey, I'm losing my house. I'm like, man, it crushes me. My family's a single income entity. Like if I don't grind, they don't eat. And so my heart's out for people. But then I see that I'm like, how can you rationalize? So it's an interesting perspective.
I like what you said just now. I grind. I think people have a misconception of that. I think that there's been a lot of posts, and I wrote about this not too long ago. It didn't get well received, I don't think, but it didn't really go anywhere. But like I basically said that I don't believe that money is a bad reason to be doing what you're doing. I think people are, for lack of a better word to say, a bunch of pussies. Excuse my French.
There we go.
Right. A bunch of language. Here we go. A bunch of weak. Because like there's so much of this. Like, look, I get it. You shouldn't be working in such an unhealthy way that it negatively affects your relationship with your family or your family's lives, right? But wanting money and doing something for money to make money is fucking the capitalism. It's the American way. It's why we're here.
The world's way. You name one economy that's not based on capitalism, I'll call bullshit. Sorry.
Right. So I think I understand why people post some things when they say, it's not about the money. It's about, the relationships. It's about work-life balance. It's about all this stuff. It's like they're afraid to say they're working for money.
Well, I find it interesting, right? And I think it's a point of motivation, right? It's extrinsically motivated, intrinsically, or altruistically motivated. I think those are the three main categories. I'm very money motivated. I do something, I want to receive something in return for the most part. Obviously, circumstances may apply. Now, I understand my role, and we have established my role within my family, right? My wife takes care of my two beautiful children throughout the day with my assistance as much as I possibly can, but I am here to surplus them financially, to provide a roof over their head, to provide. that comes with money. So if
That's
I
right.
don't make that, then I inherently am causing a riff on the relationship I deem most important in my life.
Of course.
So with that in mind, that's the circle that I'm operating in. Now, do I
Me too.
operate it on a work-life balance? Balance being a metaphor in the eye of the beholder, but it works for me.
Exactly. What you might consider a balance is different than what I consider, or this
Yeah.
guy or that guy. So yeah, I sort of felt like people are they want to be nice, they want to say these nice
It's
things, they want
soft.
to appear. It's soft.
It's
It's about
soft.
money.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not doing this for money. This isn't making me money, sure, but I do most of what I do on a daily basis so that I can keep the job that pays me well, that puts food on the table, that gets me to go on vacation and those kinds of things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to make money and doing things to make money and grinding, even if that's what it takes, and whatever your definition of grinding. Like, I think because I've been doing it for so long, quote unquote grinding, it's not grinding to me anymore. It's like it's just your daily routine. I make a couple of hundred calls and I send out a bunch of emails and I have a bunch of conversations and then I have management meetings and coaching things and this and that. And it's like, it's all encompassing, I do it all ultimately for my family. I want my family to have good things. I have a 9-year-old too. By the way, you just had a baby. Congratulations. I remember
Thank
you
you.
told me that not too long ago. How was about 6 months now, I guess? Is it?
Two, just over
Oh,
2. Yeah,
2 months.
we're still in the thick of it.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
It's
Not
the cold in the
sleeping through the
bags in
night?
my eyes. We're in deep in
Not
it.
sleeping through the night?
Hell no.
Oh, shit.
It's all right.
Sorry to
It's
hear
all
that.
right. My CEO who's in Copenhagen doesn't mind it because I usually chat with him and work it
Max in
out.
Copenhagen?
Yeah. He moved to
Oh, I
Denmark
didn't know
a
that.
few years ago.
Well,
But
that brings me to the point. So you said you're from Rochester, right? Or Syracuse? Rochester?
Rochester. Yeah.
Yeah. You see, you've been out of Rochester so long, you call it Rochester. They would sue. They would hit you if you.
I left
It's
when I was 2.
Rochester.
Yep.
Oh,
I
okay.
left when I was 2. Yep.
So
So
you
I
went
grew
to
up mostly in the
Cali?
South. Yeah. I grew
You
up
went to.
most of my life in the South, and that's just what brought us to Boise. It's just the best of both worlds.
Well, Boise is northwest. So what South are you talking about? Florida or
Oh,
Alabama?
no. I lived in Texas, North Carolina, like the South. So that's where I grew
Okay.
up. But I was born in Rochester. I always joke. I'm like, when someone asks like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "What does that mean?" Because I moved every 2 years of my life. So that's just
You follow the military? Or?
no. He was a mechanical engineer. So he went to RIT, went to Xerox, moved around for the projects, and then just kept on rock and rolling.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was at Kodak because Kodak's big in
Yeah.
Rochester,
Well,
right?
Xerox is right down the road, so that's where they're from. Is from
I
Rochester,
didn't know
but
Xerox was in Rochester also. Oh, wow,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have a buddy from Penfield,
Yeah,
and
sure.
he lives in Marietta now. Though, of course, everybody moves out of that town because it's too
Actually,
cold.
it's funny enough. My aunt still lives there. So yeah, aunt
Oh,
still lives
God
in
bless.
Pittsfield and Ontario and all there. So
And then
that's
you were in California for a few years. So what brought you to Boise
man. We took it
or
off a whim,
Idaho?
brother. Yeah, we took it off a whim. We came out here right at the end of COVID. My son was born, and I knew I wasn't going to stay in California. We did it for fun, and that's where my wife's from. So we flew out here, and within about 36 to 48 hours, we had an offer on the house. We were like, love it out here. I got the Southern moral values that I love and cherish most of all. Got her a little bit of that West Coast weather. So meet in the middle,
Good.
and it was perfect utopia.
Oh, I'm sure it's beautiful. I mean, I've never been to
Oh,
Idaho,
it's
but
stunning, man. Like it's 28 degrees with a slight chill, but I get to see the mountains and I've got horses to my right and cows to my left and 20 minutes outside of downtown. Like it's the best.
cool. I'm 60 minutes from Manhattan, and I got cornfields and deer in my backyard too. So.
There it is. There it is. I love it, man. I
Do
love
you
it.
do you I don't know where Ryan Reisert I know lives also
Yeah, he's
in
about 15
Idaho.
minutes away from me. He's up
Oh
in
yeah,
Eagle. Yeah, he's about 15 minutes up. Yep.
yeah. Is it flat, or you said you see the mountains, but
Well, so
it's
we're in
flat?
Treasure Valley, so it's
Oh,
flat right here, but we're surrounded by mountains. So we have
oh,
about
nice.
15 different ski resorts, all within about an hour of us.
Sure.
So it's super mountainous. I mean, our outdoor life is second to none.
I
It's
imagine
just
so.
incredible.
I
Between
got to get
summer
out of here.
mountain biking, we've got like 23 lakes around us. It's incredible, and like
Yeah,
1.3 million acres of BLM Bureau of Land Management land that you could just do whatever you want.
that's awesome, man.
That's a
Well,
good
I
time.
want to really just get into like your bread and butter, right? Because you know, I think what really like I wake up every day, I expect, or I was expecting. I know you've been a little maybe focusing on the business, and you yesterday's post with the video of the market, mid market, and S&P market was just freaking hilarious. But Where, tell the audience, like, where did it come from? Like, when did you have that aha moment where like, hey, this is actually pretty fucking funny. I should do this.
So I guess, I mean, some people call it trolling. I just think it's calling bullshit. When I look at LinkedIn, right, like it's not real world. Like no social media really is. And I don't have other social medias. I don't have TikTok and LinkedIn and all that. Or I shouldn't say that. I've got LinkedIn for obvious reasons. But where it came down to, so in between my transition out of Falcon, what I realized is that, I need to strengthen my network. I really want to connect with people. And a lot of these people who are like getting these surplus of people praising them like freaking disciples, I was like, well, how do these guys operate? So I was trying to connect with them. And I met a lot of these prolific socialites, or whatever you want to call these gurus on LinkedIn. And I was massively let down. I'm like, on one hand, you type pretty, but two, you don't know what the hell you're talking about on like a practical application point. Right. And so I said it one time. I may have had a couple liquid courages. I'm not going to, I'll plead the fifth on that one, but it definitely had one of those moments where everybody was like, yeah, man. And then all of a sudden it was just like these points that people were reaching out, like, thank you for saying what we've all been thinking. I was like, man, well, why don't you all say it? Like, it's not. And a lot of people are held back by the fact that they have their title or their company associated, which I appreciate. And I by no means on hating on anybody. I pick out themes, and I bash on themes a little bit. So I go about it a little bit differently, but it made me feel, it was more like the therapy for me. I was going through rough times, man. A lot of shit was just not pointing north, and I was just figuring myself out, and I was just kind of sitting there, and I was finding my own voice, as they say. And the humor, which is who I naturally am. I love to laugh. I think it's one of my good traits, if any. And I would just start typing, man. And I started typing and kept on typing. And I was like, man, this is fun. This is good. This is good humor. People are engaging. My comment section, I would argue, is probably one of the most best comment sections you'll ever find on LinkedIn, because people just are like catalytics on this.
Yeah.
And that's what I do it for, man. I don't give a shit about the engagement, but I just have good conversations. I've generated $1.4 million of pipeline in the last 4 months from just trolling people. I ain't stopping, man. Like, it's one of those ideas. Like, everyone talks about being a disruptor, but nobody wants to disrupt.
Yeah. But you see, you're telling the story though in a very comical way, and the videos are like just priceless. Like that one I remember of you in like the tub. You were sitting in like the bathtub. I think you did like 2 or 3 of those. I was like, come on, man. What's this guy gonna do next? You just really brought it in a unique way, because like you said, like people are afraid to say certain things or point out certain things, because maybe it's partly because of who they are, their companies, forcing them not to say anything on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
But others are like for me, I'll put myself up there. I think when I notice things that are wrong, my post about it just tends to come off negative. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just bashing them, or I'm just like, I'm making an offhanded comment that this is wrong and you should really be thinking this way. But you have like just really unique way of making fun of it in a way that's like we know the point you're trying to make, and nobody could just say it. Just they don't know how to say it that way.
Well, they're afraid to say it. Right? Like I'm guilty of it too. I tried on those guru shoes for a second, and man, they were 14 size too small. Like it was just weird. And like I get it. Like I totally get the dopamine rush. I love that shit too. That's why I consistently post. But the idea is like, who am I? What kind of channel am I navigating to? How am I breaking through the noise? How can I actually get this so that way it does come back in some sort of revenue action? And then most of all, let's have some fucking fun while we're doing it. Like, come on, let's laugh at it, man. 9 out of 10 people that are going to be logging in, that's maybe exaggeration. 6 out of 10 people that are logging into LinkedIn are looking for a job.
Yeah.
They don't give a crap.
Well, that's what it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. And they're still doing it, which please do. That's how I've gotten all but one job is through LinkedIn. But the same idea is like, we're going to see guru selfie, day in the life, and then Eric calling bullshit, literally with a bull icon and shit icon. Like, what the
I know. Like, it's fantastic.
I'm just like, this is fun. That's what I want to be.
Yeah, man. I love it. I continue to do it. I'm curious. Like I took actually, do you know Chris Bogue?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So Chris coaches a lot of people on how to do video, but he's actually like an artist, like he's a
Yeah.
comic, you know. So his his thing is he has like little scripts, like he writes out, and I took his class and we didn't get that deep into this piece of it, but he literally writes out like the little skits essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And like, you know, it's funny. For me, it's kind of like I love acting. I was a theater kid back in the
Yeah, right
day,
on.
and but for me, it was always like I was always more of an improv type guy, and that's what he does. He does a lot of improv, but he writes like his videos. He pieces them all together, but he writes it all out. He knows exactly how he wants it to look, so that this way, when he goes to post editing and stuff, he knows how to put it together. But he like I said, he writes it out. Now, like that thing you did yesterday, where you know, you're like, oh, the market guy and then the SMB guy, and you had different shirts on, you had different tags on, different pieces of the room you were in. So, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
do you typically write it out, or do you just wing it, or do you think about it, or do you write a little bit? Like, how do you do it? I'm curious.
No, man. I wish I put that much thought into it. Maybe one day I will. But that most of it is me being inspired by something stupid I see, and then I'm like, man, I
Yeah.
can make this funny, or something along those lines. And so when I see like yesterday's video that I was actually a repost. Funny enough, I just changed the title and the subject because everyone's
I
going nuts
thought
on
I
the
saw you one time do
Hell
something with the
yeah, yeah,
bottle
yeah,
in your
yeah.
hand. So I was like, is this new? But
That's
I
from
don't
an
even
old
know.
house, for crying out loud. So anyway,
Oh,
point being though, I was just like, oh man, this would be funny in this context, and I just changed the title, and everyone's just like, dude, this is hysterical. I'm like,
it was
awesome.
hilarious.
I'm glad I could brighten up your day in some sort of capacity. But to answer your question, I think I've written two out, and they're my worst performing in the sense that like people are like, man, you put too much effort into this, and I was like, I say less, my bad. Like I'll go back to the
Right.
drawing board.
Yeah.
But 9 out of 10 times, I'm just walking up. I'm like, man, it would be really funny if I just throw a junk market. And I was like, fuck
Well,
it, we can.
I kind of took it. You know what? You know how I saw that, the drunk piece. I sort of saw it as you calling the market saturated,
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
right? Because you were
it's one of those
talking
things
about,
that, yeah, the drunk market could be kind of interpreted between saturated, influx, the
or just
fluctuations,
in
which is
trouble.
where I was coming from. So like market fluctuations is nothing new, but everyone's calling it this fucking epidemic of change of market. But
Hmm.
I digress. But yeah, it's one of those, man. And then people are just like, oh man, it's a good bottle of whiskey. And I was like, hell yeah, Basil Hedden's the best, you know, like.
Oh, that's what it was. I didn't even notice what the bottle was,
Yeah,
but
yeah, which is funny because I don't
I'm
even
kind
drink
of.
anymore, but it was one of those I was like, "Oh crap, I still got
I
this.
got
Let's have some fun."
I got this new one. My brother brought me the other day. Travelers,
Yeah, 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 sure, sure.
Traveler whiskey. It's a whiskey. Um, this is a good like it's light. It's not like you don't need to put a cube in it. You could drink it straight, and it's not too rough. You know, it's got nice oaky,
There we
light
go.
oaky flavor. I've been digging it. I've been promoting it.
Yeah,
But
there we go.
you know, it's you said something about LinkedIn being, you know, the giving you the ability to have a job or you know, find a new job.
Yeah,
I agree. I too have had the luxury, if you will, of getting the last two roles. Well, the last role, it was interesting. Like in, you know, for years I was, you know, like anybody else, email resumes. In fact, there's a story I've told before. Maybe some people have heard it. I interviewed one time. Talk about your network and your Rolodex. I interviewed with a company called Garland Roofing. They are one of the most expensive roofing material coatings. They're roof coatings in the country, right? The reps there are actually business owners of their own, like kind of small business, because they pay 25%
yeah,
commissions on gross sale. So like if you sell $1 million roof in New York, you're going to make 250,000. Most of these guys they're just considered reps. They have
yeah,
secretaries, they have offices, they have equipment, you know, they have all this stuff. And because they do 5, 6, 7 roofs a year, they're making 2, 3 million bucks, you know,
crazy.
and
Yeah,
it's amazing, right? But I went on this interview, and we talked about interviews. I went on this interview, right? And this guy was like an ex-baseball player, ex-college baseball player turned HR director. And they were big on hiring people in the sport, from sports and things, team, whatever. And while I wasn't necessarily a sports team guy, I wasn't a college baseball player, but he put me through this like rigorous tests, personality test, math test, English test, all these freaking tests. I sat in a hotel a lot, in a hotel, a conference room with him for 6 hours, going through all these tests and like answering his questions in between. And at the end of the day, I said to him, I said, well, where do I stand? Because I was always taught that like you should really just be assertive at the end of the call and say, hey, where are we at? Where do I stand? What can I do to make you guys want to hire me or whatever? And so I said that to him. I said, where do I stand? And he goes, well, you're number two. Number two. It's like, all right, well, how do I become number one?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, well, the guy is number one. First and foremost, he lives closer to the territory. That was the biggest caveat they had on me, was that I lived an hour and a half away, and you'd have to be on a roof at 5:30 in the morning, which I don't see why. If you said I had to be on a roof at 5:30, I'd be on the roof at 5:30. Who the fuck cares where I live? If I live 4 hours away on a plane, I get there. But he said the other guy came to the table, and by the way, this was like only the second interview, first interview, second interview. He came to the table with his Rolodex and all of his certificates and accolades and President's Club shit and whatever. I was like, what? I was like, who brings that to their first interview or their second interview? Like, that's like icing on the cake. That's like when people ask you for references. Like, I'm not going to give you a reference because what? Am I going to give you a bad reference? Like that references are stupid, I think, personally. But in that context, I mean, obviously references for like if Adam said, hey, hire this guy,
Sure.
That's a good reference. But like the old school way of references that you would deliver to somebody to check you out. And anyway, so he said, he's like, Mark, he goes, I'm not saying you can't be number one. I'm not saying that if you don't have a PowerPoint presentation on my desk by Monday morning that, you might not, that I could still consider you. And I said, oh, okay, fine. And so I went back to my house and I thought to myself, man, the guy came with his Rolodex. Like, what is that? Right. And I thought to myself, man, I have in my closet like 18 boxes of cards, of business cards. Because, back in the day, there was no internet.
You just had Rolodex. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. At like 20 Rolodexes, if you will. But they were just boxes of like business cards, because every time I got my own deck of business cards, and you've took those out, I would put all the other ones back in.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And so I had all these business cards and I thought to myself, well, how do I show this guy I have a better network or a bigger Rolodex or whatever? And I thought, well, it's a roof coatings company. Why don't I put all of my cards on my roof? And I literally got up on my roof of my house, this house, and I started tacking all these business cards to the roof, or trying to tack them onto the roof, right? And I got about half of the roof done, and then all of a sudden, like this gust of wind came by at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like they all went flying. Thankfully, I had already taken a video. I've taken pictures. My wife was up there helping me do it. So like in the PowerPoint, I had pictures of it. And I said, look, even my wife is dedicated to my profession.
Sure.
And these guys were totally so blown away that I did that. And I had all these other pictures of like, I had a baby picture, I had a picture of a boat and a motorcycle. Like, this is what motivates me and all this shit. And then I took photos of like my President's Club crystals and my certificates and stuff. And I thought, hey, maybe I got this in the bag. They didn't hire me because of where I lived, unfortunately, but that's what they said. They go, we were blown away by your PowerPoint. Oh, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I can't believe you got on top of your roof and you did that. And I was like, so I got the job? And he's like, well, unfortunately, just to tell you this, the whole geographic thing was part and parcel. The problem was and this will blow your mind. The sales manager you would work for, it was really his problem that he had with me about not being close to the territory. And what he did was he goes, you live 65 miles, it's going to be an hour and a half, you got to be at places in the morning and I said, so I don't understand, like that's my responsibility to be there, like what does that have to do with you? He goes, he's like, when I first started in this business, my territory was also 60 miles away, and I wound up getting divorced.
Mm.
I was like, dude, in what world, right, does your relationship with how you manage your relationship with your wife have anything to do with how I manage my relationship with my wife? I was like, I'm not getting the job because obviously I wasn't the right man for the job, right? At the end of the day, it was probably nothing to do with geography. It had nothing to do with the tests that I took because I, blew those out of the water. They just particularly just didn't like me, and I think that's, it's tough when I hear about how people go through these rigorous interview processes, and I think about that one, and for me though, but back to the LinkedIn thing is like, I got my when I came into this industry in 2020, roughly 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, yeah, I was my own BDR. I was like working independently for a couple of SaaS companies, which I got actually, interestingly enough, I got the role at one of them because I was doing live cold calls on the Discord channel. We had like a Discord server. Justin Michael had a community, and I was doing live cold calls on like the Discord channel. And this guy who owned the SaaS company had popped in and saw me, and he's like, "I want to hire you." And then from there, well, I was doing it independent, but I really couldn't grow it. I couldn't scale it because I was doing the work and I couldn't find new customers that easily. So I said, "Oh, maybe I'll go do it for somebody else." And I called up Jared Robin, and I said, "Hey, man, you're building this community. I'm sure you probably know people." And at that time, bro, it was like 500 people. Now there's 50,000 in Rev Genius. But it was like I said to him, I said, "Hey, man, I'm interested in maybe joining a company. I know you run this community. You probably know some people." He's like, "As a matter of fact, I know somebody looking for BDRs right now." And he just introduced me to Steve Schmidt, and the rest was history. I joined Tidal as like the 7th or 8th BDR there. Of course, if you know that story, that sort of fell apart and with Cellx, a couple years later. But
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I used Jarrett, not used it, but I leveraged my network.
Leverage it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the customers that I had at Tidal, when that thing fell apart, one of the customers that I was working for, doing good work for, just hired me out of there. And I don't really, like you said, I don't really see myself ever having to, or hopefully not having to, build a resume. Like my resume is online, is on LinkedIn. Like
Yeah.
that's me. There's nothing in a piece of paper, a resume, that I want to show you that's going to be any different than what you see, on LinkedIn. So I truly believe that when you establish yourself on the platform or in a community or utilizing and leveraging these social channels or these other channels, that yeah, it's going to be job security for you in a
Yeah.
sense.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Like it definitely makes it a wake when you move or transition or have an unfortunate circumstance where you can make a post or even just let your network know, like, hey, change pace here. And you can get an outstanding response with it. So
Excellent.
it's
Well,
incredible.
I know you had a hard stop. You had to cut it short. You couldn't go too long. So I just want to jump into the last thing. I ask everybody on the show, what is their hack to getting over the hump of the day, which is today. And I always tell my story, which is, I always like to kind of hopefully be more than halfway to my goal for the week. On Wednesday, I don't eat any special thing to keep me going. I don't do anything special in the morning to get me going. I have my yogurt and my coffee, and I'm rocking and rolling. So I always curious what other people do on a daily or during the week that really kind of helps drive their week. So shoot, whatever you think is your
Man, I'm a
trick.
big believer that you earn the break, right? Like I don't know, growing up on a ranch kind of maybe is skewed a little bit, but you didn't get a break unless you earned it. So whether the project was done, whether the task was done, whether you had you know, points of progression, I digress. So I like to earn the weekend, right? Like I look to earn that time. Be it completed projects, be it completed tasks, whatever that may be.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I also love what I do and I'm good at what I do. And so that natural drive and I love money that I just want to continue to do exactly, yeah, exactly it day in and day out. So I look at
Well
it
said.
not as a sense to get over the hump of the week, man. It's just another day with that ins and why for me. And then that kind
I
of
just
mindset.
I
Just
just
keep
always
it moving.
find the Wednesday is like the biggest day. It's the longest day for me because it's like I don't know, because of the show probably more so, but I
There
don't
you go.
know. It's like I always feel like Wednesday's that day. Like if you've done some good things, then Wednesday's an easy.
Yeah,
Thursday becomes easier. Friday, you earned it.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever like just cut short on Friday and was like, I'm done for the week. Like
I work on
I'm just
Saturdays
not.
and Sundays, man. I
I'm
generate.
just not built that way. Like I can't just like I think I may have earned it. So that's why like maybe at 5:30 on Friday I might,
There it
grab
is.
a little bit
Attaboy.
of this.
Attaboy.
But I don't know. I first of all I also think Friday afternoons and we were talking about this on LinkedIn earlier with somebody was that it's a great day to call. It's a great time to call. People first touch is on Friday afternoon. People are going to be, they don't have any meetings. They're probably a little bit more relaxed. A little bit too late. You might catch them on their way home, which is even better. Uh, I always feel like, it's an underestimated time. People are like, oh, Friday, I don't want to call them, but I want to cut out early. No, why don't you try it? See what you can. I've set like 3, 4 meetings a couple of times, between 4 and 5 o'clock on a Friday. So,
I set
you know,
6 last Friday, man. I'm a big
oh,
believer. And this is by no means a flex. I'm just a big believer.
no, no,
I generate 40% of my pipeline on the weekends. Like I go to where it's quiet. And if y'all are going to clock out on Friday, cool. More for me. That's
exactly. Well, it's a great way to end this call. I really appreciate you joining me. It was a long time coming. I hope we could do it again.
that it was, my friend. That
Love
it
to
was.
stay in touch. I'm always open to collaborating on projects and things. And I really think what you guys are doing at ComSor is awesome. It was weird when I first met Mac or kind of ran into him and I saw what they were doing. He was very like stealthy about what it was. Nobody
Yeah.
really understood what it was, and he kept it that way. Like even if you asked him, I think it was like a year or two ago, you would ask him and he'd be like, he kind of like, this is, you just,
The
he
guy
wouldn't answer.
operates differently, man, and I love
He,
him for that. But
he wouldn't answer. He would go, that's the trick of it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
goes, just
We're
wait.
we're we're gonna be loud. We're gonna be loud. I mean, they hired me for crying out loud. I'm
Yeah,
6'5". I'm 250 pounds. Like I'm a big dude. I'm loud.
sure.
So I
Hey,
better
do
make
you
that
know
right.
Jake? You must know Jake, yeah, right? Jake Klinkhammer?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course I know Jake. Yeah, I used to work with him back at Falcon.
Yeah. So he came from Tidal. He was with me at Tidal. Him and
Oh, okay. Now I'm piecing it together. That's right. Okay, cool. Yeah, Jake. Yeah, I used to rock with that guy. Good.
actually, he was like when I was there. I was actually weirdly enough. Like I said, I was there early, and Steve had us bouncing different roles and stuff. And
That's right.
I was like his. I was like his. He liked to think I was like his triage boy. Like when one of the reps couldn't make inroads with a particular account, he'd call me up. He's like, Mark, I need you to put on your cape and get on this account and break it open. I'm like, oh, great, And then they made me manager. He made me BDR manager, and I don't know if I hired Jake or he was on my team with a couple of other guys, and then all of a sudden, like some things were falling apart. I didn't know what was really going on behind the scenes. Nobody did, but he was like, look, I need you to get back onto these 2 accounts and save these 2 accounts. And then all of a sudden he made Jake like the BDR manager. I was like, this guy just came in. I was training him. What the hell? So, but yeah, great guy. Yeah, when I saw you were at Falcon, I was like, oh, I remember he was at Falcon.
Yeah, that's my guy, man. Michigan. No, Minneapolis.
Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah.
There it is.
And
Yeah.
he's a big dude too.
Yeah. So I've never met him in person. I've never had the
Yeah.
pleasure, but good guy. But no,
Hey man, thanks for everything. Where can people find you? Obviously LinkedIn. ComSor I got on the bottom here, but
thank you, man. I appreciate the plug. Yeah, I'm just on LinkedIn, man. I'm a simple guy, but I'm on there like a 13-year-old's on TikTok, brother. Like, oh, is that too soon? But no, it's a good time, brother. I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. Look forward to doing this again sometime.
Absolutely. Well, everybody, check out the Hump on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 5:30, and you can find me also on LinkedIn at Mark Mack. And thanks again, Eric, man. I appreciate it for all those who tuned in or who got cut off, because I'm seeing over here on my other screen that it says we're having issues. LinkedIn's been having issues, but it was still broadcasting from YouTube, actually. I have it on YouTube, SDR Insider on YouTube. And appreciate you all, and have a good night. Peace.
See ya.